What should we expect from Asics Running in 2024? Well, I think this shoe, the new Novablast 4, is giving us a lot of insight as to some of the key trends that we will see across all of the Asics shoes in 2024. Now, this is not a review of this shoe, that will be the next video on this channel, but consider this a bit of a prologue to be able to talk about this shoe because I think there are some key big macro trends that we will be talking a lot about across all Asics shoes in 2024. It would be a bit of an understatement to say that Asics has been kind of the darling of the running shoe world for the past couple years. They have really kind of come out of nowhere with some brilliant shoes, some really beautiful design language, and a lot of key innovations. Now, Asics has always been a core running brand. I think they've never not been focused on running, but they are a bit slow to move and change. And until recently, really the past 3-4 years, their shoes look like they were stuck in 2005 and they really hadn't changed. Now, there's a certain demographic of Asics runners who want their shoes to stay that way. They want their gel, they want all of those older technologies. But I think with the resurgence we've seen in Asics over the past few years, we have seen some really interesting and innovative approaches to using the current modern technologies. I think the best way to illustrate some of these changes and challenges for Asics is to look at a scale of some of their shoes across a daily to tempo or workout shoe. Now, Asics has always had shoes like the Gel Cumulus, the Gel Nimbus, and the Hyperspeed. And I realize the Hyperspeed in its current iteration is a re-release or a redo of an older Hyperspeed, but still, that's a very classic Asics shoe. There's also other models like the Keanu, the GT2000, the 1000, the DS Lite. There's a lot of other shoes that are classic Asics shoes, and I would call these the classic lineup. But at the same time, over the past couple of years, Asics has also created the Novablast, the Superblast, and the Magic Speed. Now, I would actually call these the modern shoes. And the problem here is that there is basically a one-to-one correlation between these. In the classic line, you have your daily trainer to your workout shoe. The modern line very much has that too. I realize there isn't quite a direct overlap between the Superblast and the Nimbus, but if you're looking for a max cushion shoe, you're kind of getting that. And the point I'm trying to illustrate with this is that it does feel like there's two distinct product lineups within the overall Asics running line. You have the classic lineup, which probably has a design staff back in Japan that's been responsible for that lineup forever. And then you have the modern lineup, which probably has a design staff somewhere in the West, probably the States, that's responsible for that lineup. And there isn't a lot of sharing or overlap between those two groups. Now, from watching press interviews with product managers and designers from Asics, I know it isn't that black and white. I do believe there is a creative director and a design staff that oversees both of them back in Japan, but it does feel like there's two very distinct product lineups happening right now in the Asics lineup. I think these dual product lines are representative of some challenges that are unique to a company like Asics being from Japan. Tradition is very important for Japanese companies, which is why I think they're still holding on to those classic models, even when they have, frankly, probably better options in the more modern shoes that more runners actually prefer. But I will say this, as an American runner who lives in Taiwan, when I'm out running, I do see a lot of runners here in Taiwan, and I will say the same thing about Japan, in Asics shoes. In fact, I'd say I would probably see 40 to 50% of the runners that I see at any given time in Asics shoes. But I have never seen a Taiwanese or Japanese runner in a pair of Novablast or Superblast. I see them occasionally in Magic Speeds, but I'm seeing them in shoes that I don't recognize because they're much older models. And, last year when the Gel Keanu came out here in Taiwan, that was heavily promoted and you saw that shoe everywhere. But when I do see Asics runners, they are in older models or just some of these more classic models. You just don't see the modern shoes here in Taiwan or Japan very much. It's not to say that people don't run in those shoes here. Asics does have a run club here in Taipei, And through their Instagram stories, I do see people in that run club in Novablast, in Superblasts. I see that all the time. But when I'm just out there on the road, just generally speaking, you just don't see it. But when I was running in the States, if I saw someone in Asics, which was kind of rare to be honest, but if I did, they were either in a Novablast or a Superblast. There weren't any other shoes represented. Racing wise though, everything sort of ladders into the meta speeds, and I will say that racing here in Taiwan, you do see a lot of meta speeds, and from a promotion and an influencer space here in Taiwan, meta speeds are promoted quite heavily. So you do see meta speeds across, racing disciplines here in Asia and in the States. But, the meta speeds are kind of special because they are the race shoe, and both the classic and the modern lines will ladder into them. So what are these trends that I'm talking about that we're seeing across the modern Asics shoes? Well, I think if you look across these three shoes, you'll see some similarities here in that Asics is leaning in heavily into max cushion or a lot of foam and a lot of rocker, especially forefoot rocker. A lot of this started with the Metaspeed Sky Plus. That was a fairly drastic redesign of the Metaspeed Sky. Really ramped up the toe rocker and the forefoot stack. Then we got the Superblast, which kind of took that to a next level. And now we're seeing the Novablast 4 get the same treatment. And I think that's quite significant because if you look at the comparison between the Novablast 3 and the Novablast 4, there is significantly more toe rocker in the Novablast 4, even though the geometries between these two shoes are very similar. Now from these photos, which are the official product photos, it's hard to tell, but trust me, running in these two shoes and feeling them on foot, there is a drastic difference, and you feel that extreme toe rocker in the Novablast 4 significantly. And honestly, it's quite a nice feeling. So that is the trend I think we're going to see Asics lean even more into in 2024, is that max cushion, extremely rockered, especially in the forefoot technology that they've been making work really well for them. Now we have seen the Metaspeed Sky 2 or 3 or whatever the next Metaspeed Sky is on athletes' feet at the World Majors. And from what I can tell about that shoe is they have sort of rethought the way the toe rocker looks on that shoe. It looks very similar to what the Metaspeed Sky Plus is. It just has a refined sort of rocker to it, especially in the forefoot. And I know there is a new foam there. There's an FF Turbo Plus foam coming there. So there'll be some changes there too. But I think it's really interesting how Asics is really leaning into what is sort of the state of the art in running shoes right now, which is rockered, max cushion, very soft shoes. And I think they're doing it better than any other brand right now. And that's where I think this shoe is so significant. This is the first real insight we're seeing into what Asics is going to release in 2024. And I will say that this is a significantly more fun model to run in than the previous model. Now you're going to have to wait for my initial impressions video, which will be the next video on this channel for me to really get into the weeds on this shoe. But I will say there's a lot of subtle changes in this shoe that make this a much more fun shoe to run in that is a bit more refined than what we had last year. And I think that, again, sets a precedence for a lot of exciting changes we're going to see in Asics shoes in 2024. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing. You'll see more content like this pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.